like the biggest guest ever, and I messed it up. Hey, everyone. Hey!
Hey, what's up, buddy?
Man of the hour. I am so sorry. I was just about to announce because we went live to entertain the peoples who were undoubtedly becoming impatient that you were not yet live on air in front of them.
Don't worry.
I was going to say, I screwed up the time zone. Big time me. So I'm taking the L and apologize to everyone, including our guest, the internet famous Destiny. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I just remembered it's night for you. Sorry, that was really weird.
Yes, that is. For both of us, it's night.
Yeah.
That's true. And
Yes.
dark very early.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay, Kristi. I'm only the co-host. You don't have to introduce me at all.
And sorry. Right. I'm
That's
sorry.
fine. It's fine.
I'm off my game. A
You
happy
are.
hour couldn't possibly be a happy hour without my co-host, Kevin. Kevin, how are you tonight besides neglected by the other co-host?
Well, I can't. Well, you've harshed my buzz with your lack of swag. So I'm
Yes.
down with the kids. I'm down with the kids with that kind of lingo.
I'm going to have to up my game big time to make up for this. Yeah, and I don't know that you guys have talked before, Kevin and...
We did. Yeah, we were actually all three of us were on a chat about Jean-Francois Garapi being a fucking rapist ages ago.
Oh, I don't even remember that. I've been on YouTube too long. I'm starting to forget people appearances that I've been on. That's ridiculous.
Oh yeah, people ask me about stuff, and I'm like, I don't remember this. When was this? You know. But,
Is it Kevin? Are you the same Kevin that is the biologist guy? Or
no.
not? Nope. Okay. Gotcha. Just making sure. Gotcha. Okay.
That would be a much more dignified Kevin, probably.
Almost certainly. I imagine he's made a valuable contribution to humanity and does fewer dick jokes. So
it's possible. I'm not too sure what the rate of dick jokes that guy engages in, but
well, if he's got me beat on dick jokes as well, I'm fucked. I've got nothing.
So, Destiny, to let you know a little bit about what a happy hour is, it's me and Kevin chatting for an hour.
Well, it's usually a tight ship, but someone let us down this week.
The captain's drunk this week, and the ship is going everywhere. We pretty much ignore the chat because we're chatting and they just get the privilege of listening in. Sometimes we'll talk to them, but mostly we ignore them. But they know that, and actually they have their own little community and they do their own thing, so it's fine. Although at the end, we are going to let them take questions or put questions up to you if that's all right before we end the show. But it's basically like a topical show, some highbrow stuff, some lowbrow stuff, and as such, we've got a potpourri of topics for you to choose from tonight. I talked to you, I think, about, well, I was in awe of your stamina of calmness. Occasionally, you'll at least talking to a Peterson fan, but life has moved on since then. Although, if you want to talk about that, that's fine. We got a story here about a new psychological study that was conducted at Yale that turned conservatives into liberals. And so I thought we could talk about that. Kevin wanted to look at the Laura Loomer story and her Twitter.
Yeah, because that was fun. I don't know if you did you follow that at all last night?
Yeah, I see people kept linking me to the live stream. Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. Anyway, so I thought we'd have a just a brief chat about that because it was fun.
Yeah, and when we were coming on air, we were going to go over. Somebody cleaned up our hangout with Sargon and put all the salient points into it and took all of the piss takes out, and we were just going to look at that. But do any of those topics in terms of a starter appeal to you?
Any and everything, whatever you guys want to talk about. I'm the guest.
Yeah, but you're the celebrity here, so you get to decide.
Yeah, I talk about all this stuff, so we can talk about anything. I'm equipped. I'm ready to go. Okay, it's early for me.
Well, that's so unlike our last guest, I have to say.
Yeah, exactly. But that's fair enough because I mean, Destiny technically turned up 46 minutes earlier than it was planned. So that's much
basically,
better.
This is his only appearance.
A quarter of an hour late.
Yeah, this is his only appearance on our show after the treatment we've given him. So we should make the most of it and just be nice as possible. All right. So this came out in the Washington Post. As you can see, it's about a political science study that was carried out. And this has been known in political science for a while that
Kristi, you say as you can see. You should probably share that so people can fucking.
No, I am sharing it. I just think you can't see it because we're in the Hangout together.
What?
Yeah, that's how it works.
No, is it? I have no idea how anything works.
There we go. Yeah, it does say stop sharing. So
wow, she really just took the piss out of you. Did I say that right? Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. So in political science, we've known for a while through experimental like psychology and political science, political psychology, that when you show graphic images or disturbing images like a big hairy spider or something on a computer to a conservative and you measure their biological reactions, well, when people do that, and you correlate that with their political attitudes, people with more conservative political attitudes also tend to have a greater physiological response to a disturbing image or intense image or a shock or a horror, whereas liberals have a more muted reaction. And this research is building on that. And how they decided to do it was, here we go. They surveyed people about their opinions on contemporary issues such as gay rights, abortion, feminism, and immigration, as well as social change. And then they sort of describe the groups. And then before they were given the survey questions, however, the researchers had them engage in an experiment, and a visualization one, where they were asked to close their eyes and imagine being visited by a genie who granted them a superpower. And for half of the participants, the superpower was the ability to fly under their own power. For the other half, it was to be completely physically safe safe and invulnerable from harm. So then they went ahead and gave their answers again. And what they found was, I'm trying to skip down so I don't read it word for word. Here we go. If they had imagined being able to fly, the response to the social attitude survey showed that the usual clear difference between Republicans and Democrats was there. Former endorsed more conservative positions on social issues and more resistant to social change. But if instead they had imagined being completely safe, physically safe, Republicans became significantly more liberal. Their positions on social attitudes were more like Democrats. And on the issue of social change in general, Republicans were now indistinguishable from Democrats. Imagining being completely safe from physical harm had done what no experiment had done before. It had turned conservatives into liberals. And then they had another part of this where they link it to anti-immigration attitudes and being like viruses. So they used hand sanitizers after being warned about a flu virus, and they found that that had the same effect on immigration as some other stuff. So what we're finding is that people's perceptions of their physical safety is correlated to, in the ephemerally, obviously you don't know if this is going to go on for a week or a month or a year, but in the moment, it softens their conservative attitudes. So there's that thing that happened.
Yes, thoughts.
Without looking into the methodology and anything too much, it doesn't seem too surprising. I feel like most conservative positions are usually you get there through fear. I think that makes a lot of sense, right? You're worried. I mean, conservatism in general can almost be defined as a fear of change. It seems like, at least socially, in a lot of ways. So, I mean, if you think that nothing wrong can happen from the changes because you're completely safe, it kind of makes sense. I think that they wouldn't care as much.
It also makes me reconsider the impact of Fox News on people.
Oh,
because
I didn't know you needed to reconsider the impact of that.
Insofar as you've got this, this I mean, we can talk about the bad news and the way it works out, but this fear mongering that they constantly do, and basically using this, we can what the study to me does is it starts to set up a link between a more serious link between being exposed to propaganda that's meant to scare you and then pushing people to the right. And so these kinds of studies, even though they're sort of, micro in the lab, having this ephemeral effect allows us to then generalize, more broadly, because these are hard things to observe. So maybe I'm just going all geek here because we got this finding that.
Kristi, we basically, just be honest, you thought Fox News was fucking awesome, didn't you?
before
you've
this.
had to reconsider this now, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad to see you've changed your mind.
Which also then begs the question, what kinds of things need to be done to counterbalance Fox News and that kind of effect? Is it about making people more aware of it? Is it counter narratives? Is it?
Well, education, actually educating American children would help, I think.
Can't do that, though, and a lot of Republicans feel like education is a liberal indoctrination camp or whatever.
Yeah, that's why they're altering textbooks in, Texas to whitewash slavery to make it more amenable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and doing fucking creationist bullshit.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the solution is. I mean, it'd be nice to just tell people to stop fear mongering. I don't know how. I don't know realistically how you get people on board with that, especially it sucks because I hate saying this with everything, but it's such a fucking complicated topic. Like on one hand, media is kind of incentivized to fearmonger. If you turn on the news every day and it's just like, hey, everything's going okay, there's not much money to be made there, and the major media outlets, at least in the United States, are all massively profit driven. So, yeah, I don't know. So you've got that. Then you've got the fact that conservatives tend to be, or I say conservatives, but honestly, it's most people will be highly motivated by fearful stuff. I mean, like the invasion of Iraq and everything seemed, from what I remember, had bipartisan support in the United States. You know, everybody was on board with that after 9/11. Yeah, I don't know, like what?
I was going to say, I found it strange that Trump sort of had a boost in his approval rating right before the election when he was really going on about the caravan, so-called caravan. And then he stopped talking about it. And, you know, the Democratic blue wave happened, but it only just finished. It wasn't like a really big one-night event or a shock that changed our perspective of Washington. And his poll numbers have drifted down again now that he's not fear-mongering. And that's, to me, that's a really
that when people
sign.
It's something interesting. A lot of people will obviously, you know, ask like, oh, do you think Trump is going to win the re-election? Blah 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 blah. One thing that this actually, in a scary kind of way, will come down to is whether or not there are any large terror attacks or anything like that. Like, these are things that I think massively benefit conservative politics. If there happens to be a huge terrorist attack, you know, people get scared again. That makes things like populism or like authoritarian leaders much more lucrative, right? You feel like you need somebody strong in charge to take care of you from some crazy looming threat or something, you know?
Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really disagree with that. Although someone pointed out in the chat, you said that there was a problem that media companies were private or were profit driven. So is that is that an argument in favor of them not being profit driven, or?
I don't know. I haven't thought about that enough. What I do know is that I am a very strong capitalist. I don't know if you guys are liberals or socialists or what. I don't actually know your economic leanings, but I'm a very strong capitalist. And what I know is that markets are very powerful things that create certain incentives. If you have a profit driver for media and there is bad media that sells better than good media, companies will be more likely to sell bad media as a result. So whether media needs to be state-ran, which is not something I'm necessarily in favor of, although I know a lot of countries seem to do it pretty decently, or whether or not there needs to be like significantly more regulation or checks and balances on the type of reporting that media does. I don't know what the correct answer is there. I haven't thought about that enough to have a really well-informed opinion.
I think there's a difference between state-run.
Oh, go ahead.
No, just there's a difference, I think, between state-run and publicly funded.
Yeah, sure, that's true too. PBS and like NPR in the United States are kind of publicly funded, and these things do a lot of great work. So,
yeah, the BBC, wrongly, a lot of foreign people claim it's the state broadcaster, but it isn't. It's not controlled by the government at all. It's publicly funded, but it's not run by the government.
Oh, good. Well, I was going to use that as an example because I didn't know, so I'm glad I did. Yeah, I wasn't entirely sure.
Yeah, I think there's. I don't know. I guess I kind of think that maybe there's an ethic of, you know, a free radio or publicly sponsored radio, but it tends to be the, you know, classical music stuff and the, you know, the art talk, and it appeals. I mean, I was a financial supporter of Wisconsin Public Radio when I was living in the States because I listened to it all the time, but it's certainly not going to. You know, you're not going to hear the latest songs, and it's not going. One station too can't provide the diversity of media coverage or music.
You're so middle class liberal, Kristi. You really are. I funded not Minnesota, Wisconsin Public Radio.
Fuck the Mud Ducks.
Well, that sounded very racist.
Yeah, it did actually.
No, that's what people from Minnesota are called because they have 10,000 lakes.
Oh. So, it's okay. Yeah, they've got 2 black people in Minnesota. Yeah, so you would call them something racist. That's fine.
It would definitely not be aimed at anybody who wasn't white in Minnesota. that was definitely a white people dig.
Well, you know, the Vikings have got some black players, so that's clearly you're being racist toward them. The only black people in Minnesota.
Yes.
Ooh, so I found the real racist.
That's my
type of
the real racist in the room. Yeah. So, let's see. I'm kind of Laura Loomer. I guess.
Yes, Laura. This was so much fun. Fucking.
I'm not gonna lie, you guys are all gonna rag on her. I had high hopes for her. I've been banned for Twitter for a long time. If that shit worked, I was about to fly down to San Francisco, whatever, and chain myself to the office door.
No. Well, hopefully not with really cringy tweets and saying questionable things.
Yeah. Well, actually watching it yesterday and knowing you were coming on today, I did think of you because she was constantly going about the silencing of conservative voices. We should probably actually explain the story. Laura Loomer, conservative fucking shit streak of a human being, tied herself, not tied herself, she handcuffed herself to the door of New York's Twitter offices, demanding that Jack Dorsey give her a Twitter account back. Because that's not the most first world problem you've ever fucking heard of. Ridiculous. Anyway, so she kept going on about how conservatives are being silenced and how the left have got free reign. I thought, well, Destiny's been banned, and I know loads of leftist / liberal centrist type people who've been banned, and loads that haven't. We all know it's inconsistent bullshit from Twitter, but it's not based necessarily on predilection for one political group or another.
And she kept saying that she was doing it on behalf of the millions of conservatives who've been silenced on, social media. But then she had her kind of counterpoint was Louis Farrakhan, who is not a totally progressive, socially justice all about dude. So I guess in that case it was her anti-Semitism angle, but she kind of conflated it when she was talking about all these issues together.
Real quickly, I never let conservatives walk this point through. The idea that conservatives are silenced everywhere is laughably fucking stupid. In the United States, Fox News dwarfs all the other news stations in terms of how many viewers they get every week. Fox News is massive. In talk radio, it is dominated by conservative pundits, the Rush Limbaughs, the Glenn Becks, the Sean Hannitys, and then on social media, you've got tons of. If you look on YouTube, all the largest YouTube people are fucking conservative. Liberals do have, or I should say, Democrats do have some platforms, like newspapers. I think the most popular, Washington Post, New York Times, these tend to be left leaning, and then podcasts probably have a left-leaning slant, but this idea that conservatives are silenced everywhere is fucking laughable. It's so stupid. They're saying that they're silenced as they're having their 2 million subscriber YouTube friends retweet this, and then it's getting coverage on the largest news network in the United States. Shut the fuck up. What are you talking about?
Victimization is always the name of it.
And even on a smaller scale with Loomer, she was literally saying, "Oh, Twitter's silencing me," as she was stood outside with the New York Police Department just allowing her to do her protest. You're obviously not being fucking silenced, then, are you? You've just had your Twitter account blocked.
And also, by my count, she was blocking a fire exit. She was littering when she threw her flyers all over the ground for people to pick up and read. And she was trespassing because she changed herself to private property. So,
well, she did. The private property thing was interesting, because she put her she had these 2 tweets blown up. She had a Louis Farrakhan one, which, to be fair, I agree with her on that point. Louis Farrakhan's a piece of shit, and if you're going to ban people, he deserves to be banned.
Yeah. But also, they didn't have the date on his. So my suspicion is that it was before they really started to enforce social community guidelines.
But even so, he is an anti-Semitic piece of garbage. And homophobic and various other things. He's fucking trash. And then her tweet, which, by the way, she claimed was completely correct, even though she called Ilhan Omar, the new congresswoman, the Muslim congresswoman, said that she was pro-Sharia law, which she demonstrably is not and has spoken out against. So, there's that kind of bullshit and lies. So there's that. And she had these 2 tweets blown up, which they then stuck above the door of the actual building. And when they took it down, she was going, "That's my private property," forgetting, of course, that she was defacing their private property.
Conservatives in general in the United States, I don't know how much you pay attention to this, have no fucking idea what private or public. They just don't know the difference between any of these fucking words. It's very fucking frustrating.
I thought that was brilliant. You've changed yourself to someone else's private property, defaced it with stuff they obviously don't want there, and yet you're screaming about your private property.
Yeah, and she actually used the phrase.
That's not how it works, you idiot.
Yeah, she used the phrase "the digital public space." If suddenly a maximum threshold, if you reach it, a private company's digital infrastructure suddenly is nationalized. How does that work?
Because if that's the case, every bank in America, every major bank in America needs to be put in public hands, doesn't it?
One would think, if we take the logic and apply
it. Because that's the economic public square, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the ultimate conservative like hypocrisy point, is where they will defend the death out of free markets in every single case where actual demonstrable harm is probably being caused to a lot of people. But when it comes to social media, that actually needs to be taken over by the government, or there needs to be significant like public regulation. I love that. It's absolutely insane to me. Anytime a conservative cries about all the people getting banned on Facebook or Twitter, which I don't even think really happens, I usually just say, well, don't worry, the free market will provide an alternative solution soon, I'm sure, right? Because that's their response to everything else.
Is that
they
your
did. It was
version of
called
thoughts
Gab.
and prayers?
Shit.
Right, yeah. But is that your version of thoughts and prayers?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
But
and it was, but not to bury the lead here, but she oh my god, she did something that actually is genuinely quite offensive. She wore a yellow star with Judah on it, to signify that she was a Jew and that this was like the Holocaust, and literally compared her banning on Twitter to earnings and the repression of Jewish people before the Holocaust. Yeah.
Yeah, I have the clip. I have to turn my sound on, but I can share it if you guys want to see it.
Yeah, please do. And then we've got, after this, I'll make a couple of points, and then we've got a really funny piece of, because she's one of the thirstiest motherfuckers you will ever see. I mean, yeah. And we've got one little bit of her hitting on a guy, and it's so funny. Oh my god, it's the most cringe thing.
Okay, so I'm turning the speaker up. We've got a really high-tech system going here, Destiny. I haven't figured out OBS yet, but here we go.
Yeah, well, it's fun because Destiny's like a professional person, and I'm sat here with a sock on a microphone with a fucking towel. Like it's pathetic.
That's actually true. Don't worry about it. But you know what? He does have his headphones in, which is a big improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So now I'm going to turn the speakers back up. So it's only like 43 seconds long. So let's get through it and then we'll talk after it.
That's what she said.
Don't.
Our free speech, and we need to protect our right to free speech. Facebook and Twitter are now the digital public squares. Everything takes place on Facebook and Twitter. And to just decide one day that you're going to ban an entire group of people from the internet because you don't like their opinion, that's egregious. You're cutting off half of the country from participating in dialogue on social media simply because you don't agree with that. And you know what? They say that there's no bias, but I really want to know. You saw my tweet right here. What was hateful about it? Why is Louis Farrakhan still on Twitter?
So there you go. That was it was. How long did it go? The video was like over an hour long when it was on Twitter.
Oh,
right?
but it was just over 2 hours, and there was so many great points. She said that they're anti-Jewish, which we'll get back to in a second. She claimed it was anti-conservative, again, demonstrably not true. And I'm going to refer to this as Laura Loomer's pissy bloomers, because she literally said that when she was asked, she'd stay there all night, even if she had to piss herself, or even if she had to literally pee in her pants, only for 16 minutes later to ask for the New York Police Department to cut her free. Yeah, she was so committed to the cause, she lasted 2 hours.
They were just going to leave her up there.
Yeah, well, they said, as long as you don't block both doors, you're not a fire hazard, so we're just going to leave you there.
Oh, I wasn't expecting him to say that, huh?
No, and of course, Twitter played it perfectly by not pressing charges, so that she didn't get arrested. She willfully went to the police station to try and like create a thing, and no one cared. It was brilliant, perfect. But yeah, she said that it was being anti-Jewish, but I think it's worth pointing out that she let's say has a predilection for Nazi cock. I'm just going to put it straight out there, right? Including, and this is alleged, right? Alleged. She committed sexual assault on a certain member of the, well, what, I don't know if he's technically all right or whatever, including using the phrase, and I swear to God, this is the allegation, she wanted to create a, quote, Aryan Jew baby with this man. Yeah. And she loves, I'm just going to kink shame her for it, she loves Nazi D. As we can see from the clip that Kristi's about to play. This is some cringe shit.
All right, this will be louder than the last one because in the last one she was like shouting from across the street. Although there's a lot more background noise if I hear correctly. So let's see.
This is brilliant. Also, check out the guy in the background who turns around as well, because I think he sums up my feelings on the matter.
Okay, this is 38 seconds long, so we'll just run it. Here we go.
And your eyes look so good. You're like beautiful.
Thank you.
You're like an Aryan degenerate goddess.
Thank you.
I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. You're Aryan too.
I know, but I'm Jewish.
It's okay.
The Nazis hate me.
It's fine.
The alt-right people want to put me in a gas chamber because they're obsessed with the Jews.
I think they're just memeing on you, but it's okay.
They're just jealous because I have big tits and an Ashkenazi IQ.
Yes, that's what it is.
Yeah.
You got it.
I'm gonna tell you a secret. Like, you know, so many people in this movement who preach trad life are like fucking people on the side and like cheating on their partners. Like,
That's so bad.
like they're not even like really trad life.
Such
Like,
stuff.
Wow, she was drunk.
Yikes.
Yeah,
Wow.
she was. That was that's some classy behaviour. They want to put me. Imagine that chatting someone up with. They want to put me in a gas chamber. I mean, that is a high tariff maneuver. If you pull at the end of that night, you've done well. God damn. But anyway, yeah. So the idea that she's against anti-Semites is a joke because she hangs around with loads of these alt-right pieces of fucking shit who hate Jewish people, so she can fuck off.
Destiny, thoughts? Kevin's had his rant.
I don't know what else to say. I mean, I don't know if there's much to add. Yeah. She shouldn't get unbanned, right?
I don't think so.
No, yeah, obviously not. No, no.
Just making sure.
Just in case case it worked.
Yeah.
In case I was about to get down.
Keeping your options open. Plan B.
Well, you should just do what Sargon does and start a new account every week.
How the fuck does he back on Twitter without getting banned? That's the real
Exactly.
question.
There are a lot of people I know who just have basically shadow accounts and run them kind of under the radar and do them for people who aren't going to narc on them, and then they get away with it.
InfoWars still get their share out through 1,000,001 different accounts, so yeah, it can be done.
I think you just need a VPN blocker in case they have your IP.
Oh no, I've tried a lot of shit. It's more than that.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, yeah, I don't know how they get away with it then.
Yeah, I get rebanned like real quick with it. Usually within a couple days. Once I make it public again, and then I start getting spam reported, I get rebanned almost instantly. It's pretty insane.
Yeah, people really, have, hold a grudge.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we move on to questions and things, or have we got anything else?
Yeah, if you guys don't mind, there were some questions. Like we said, people had some for you because.
Oh, we didn't even do the corrections from last week.
Oh no, get those out first.
Oh yeah, corrections from last week. There was brilliantly. Millennial Woes, I claimed he'd and I stick by this, but I can't actually provide a link because I forgot which fucking video it is in, and I'm not going through my notes. Bollocks to that. He claimed that he was for Britain retaking Ireland. He claimed that wasn't true and said that at least, even if he had said it in the past, he doesn't believe that now. So I'm happy to correct that record, but he's still fucking garbage because he wants to machine gun refugee boats in the Mediterranean. So, yeah, way to go on ethics there. Woes. And of course, I wrongly said that Gavin McInnes had stuck a dildo up his arse live on his show, when actually it was a butt plug.
Yeah. So
there we go. I made a bit of an ass of myself on that one, really. And I don't want him to be the butt of any jokes. I don't. Okay? I just when it comes to misleading information and lies, I don't want to spread them. I don't. So anyways, should we plug our podcast or what?
I can see why you wanted to make sure you got that in.
Yeah. Hey. There we go.
All right. So for Destiny, this comes from Dean. I would like to know what Destiny thinks about the supposed overlap between online radicalization and mental health issues in young men, particularly the correlation between self-imposed seclusion of men with depression or other mental health issues and online gibberish. This is something that's pretty important to me as a mid-20s dude with mental health issues who almost bought into the misanthropic, sarky humor of some pretty shitty human beings. There's a few things online about this matter, but I'd be interested in hearing from someone who's dealt directly with them.
So is this how like mental health issues could lead somebody to becoming radicalized, or?
I think it's the supposed overlap between online radicalization and mental health issues in young men, just to be clear. And here it goes on, it says particularly particularly the correlation between self-imposed seclusion of men with depression and online gibberish?
I don't know if that correlation exists. I'm not going to say, so I don't want to comment on it. Like, I'm just not familiar with any research. I do feel that there is, I guess, like, kind of like speaking a little bit more broadly, it feels to me like, somebody linked me a paper a long time ago. There's this impression you get if you've ever sat in traffic before, and then the light turns green, you don't notice, and all of the cars move forward. I don't know if anyone's ever experienced this before, but you can actually get a feeling that you're actually moving backwards. Like, you can actually feel it in your gut. Have you ever had that happen to you before?
On trains, too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, where like all of a sudden everything around you starts moving forward, but in it you get the feeling real quick that you're moving backwards. It's a very strange feeling. It only lasts for a second when you realize what's going on. But I think that if you're a white male, I think you can get that feeling right now in society. As you start to see women become more empowered, as minority figures become more empowered, you start to see more and more representation amongst a lot of different types of people that aren't you in the mainstream media. I think it's easy to get the kind of feeling that you're losing out. And I think that a lot of white people, because they're having that feeling, are kind of like getting a little bit more desperate, looking for, other people to kind of give them meaning or give them something in life. And I think that's where like these Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro types are kind of coming from, where they're getting their fan bases from.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good point. We've made the point before, haven't we, Kristi, about equality. When you're used to having it all your own way, equality feels like you're being oppressed.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's when you're used to having white straight men as the spokesperson for everything and in every political power position, you get the occasional woman or black person. Like, you've had one black president ever, and all of a sudden the blacks have taken over or something. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. Racism is solved.
Yeah.
Oh, that was always my favorite. Yeah. We live in a post-racial America. Oh, get fucked. What idiot ever thought that, really? Jesus.
This is something slightly different. I think this just comes down to kind of being a little dumb. The way that I always describe this is like, are you familiar with like a normal distribution, like a bell curve or whatever?
Yep,
yeah.
Yeah, half of my arguments with conservatives are usually them going, well, look at this outlier. And I go, okay. And like, well, this disproves the entire curve. It's like, no, that's not how any of this works. For some reason, a lot of people seem incapable of understanding that outliers can possibly exist, and instead think that like a single outlier proves, I don't know, whatever, that no problem exists or that everything is solved in some particular area.
I'm very much of the opinion that in schools we should skip geometry and teach statistics and probability instead.
Yeah.
I'm more of a fan of just making them sit in silence, and if they do anything that annoys me, hit them with a stick.
You're old school. Children
are evil.
The problem isn't so much, it's not like a raw probability and stats thing. I think it's more of a, I don't know if it's like, it would have to be like a combination. It would have to be like a critical thinking class that combines like a lot of psychology with math as well. Because because conservatives can actually be very intelligent when it comes to looking for like confounding variables or effect modifiers or anything like that, as long as they don't initially agree with the source. Like, conservatives become the best investigative journalists in the world if they think that something comes from CNN.com. They'll look at the person that posted the story. They'll try to find out like, oh, well, is this correct? Like, maybe there's something more going on here. Maybe there's a deeper meaning. Like, they'll fucking dig real hard into that shit if they don't. It's like, man, this is some real great investigative journalism. But then when something gets posted on the Daily Wire about like Pizzagate, all of that shuts off, and it's like, yes, Jewish conspiracy, bad. Yes, Hillary Clinton, Seth, murdered. Like, it's like, oh, okay, I guess all of that critical analysis just goes out the window when it's a source you agree with.
Yeah.
Yes, very much so. But also we have sometimes a very innate bad calculation of probability. There's a joke, that the lottery
100.
Sorry?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, just that there's a joke that says, people who play the lottery are people who can't, do statistics just because of the chance of it. And you see the positives, but you don't see all the negatives. So you kind of remember that falsely. You have a false sense of how likely you are to win. The Monty Hall problem too. So I think a course in probability would maybe, try to balance that out for some people and make us aware of our natural biases, or the fact that when we calculate things or calculate risk, we do it on a very small scale, not at the kind of big scale that our populations, you really need to think about what it doesn't mean to say 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 10,000 kind of thing.
Yeah. What I was going to say is what I commonly hear referred to is humans are capable of recognizing only 3 real probabilities without a lot of special training, and that is 0%, meaning something will never happen, 50%, meaning it might or it might not, and then 100% it for sure will happen. Anything that falls outside the boundaries of those 3 percentages, people are not capable of intuitively grasping. For a great example of this, see the election of Donald Trump, where he was given, by most credible people, anywhere from a 20 to 40% chance to winning, and people were like, "Oh, they got it totally wrong. How did it happen?" And it's like, I mean, okay, I mean, 30% is not 0. It's unlikely, but it could happen.
Yeah, then that's an excellent point, and the simplicity of 0, 50, and 100. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense in terms of how people think about things, and why superstition arises. If you see 2 things happening together, you're like, oh, these are connected. What's the chance that this could happen? And builds on that error, type 1 error, I think it is. So.
Okay, should we move on to another one?
Yeah.
Okay, we got one from Jenga Tree 121. Ask Destiny how he identifies politically.
I don't like to use labels. I know that sounds corny, but in this day and age, there is so much, in the United States at least, there's so much differentiation between types of conservatives and types of liberals/Democrats that it's like when you use a label, what you end up doing is you end up spending more time describing what you're not than what you are. So like I might say like, oh, I'm a Democrat/liberal for sure, but I'm also kind of like strongly in favor, I think, of like gun rights, and I'm a pretty big free speech advocate. I do like free markets. So I don't know how left leaning someone think I like it. It's just, yeah, I usually just go by particular policy positions rather than broad labels because people spend more time. Or, even like a conservative, you can find like a neoconservative, like a kind of a traditional Republican type is going to be a lot different than like a Trump Republican type.
Well, here's a question then. Instead of going to labels, let's go to like core values. When you're presented with a new problem, what are the general principles that would guide your evaluation of that, maybe in a market sense or in a social sense or in a political sense or in the private sphere sense, just take some examples and think about it, because I think you have pretty well formed, frameworks for these things. And maybe that's a better way to describe it than to try to ascribe a label.
Yeah, sure. I guess it depends on how deep into the memes we want to go. But from a from a higher order perspective, I would be in favor of something called I think it's the curtain of justice from Rawls, where basically your goal is to kind of create the best society possible for as many people possible. And that ideally this should work for a variety of reasons. You get the most people invested in your society, that everybody wants to contribute. And then most importantly to me, you yourself have the highest chance of doing well in the society because everyone else is doing well and because everybody's motivated to treat everybody else, with kindness or respect, or to make sure that everybody's rights are being respected and opportunity exists and all of that. So
Rawls' veil of ignorance.
Veil of ignorance. Sorry, it's not curtain of justice. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. That's right. And just for people who aren't familiar with it, it's basically a thought experiment to say, okay, if imagine we were going to.
Quite. Oh, sorry. Just gonna say it sounds like utilitarianism.
Well, not really. Let me explain. It's the thought experiment. Rawls posited that if we were presented with the opportunity to become members of society, but we didn't know what our position in that society would be. We didn't know what our ethnic background was, if we would have a disability, anything, if we'd have a health problem, nothing like that. And in the absence of that knowledge of how society's construction would affect your life, in the absence of any kind of security, what kind of society would you want to build? And Rawls then said the answer to that would be one where there's a lot of justice, because you'd want to invest in a society where you had the best chance and you didn't have systems already set up against you. So that's what's referred to as the veil of ignorance and the sort of logical construction of society that could follow from it.
Yeah, so that's generally now in terms of being like a consequentialist versus a deontologist, I would look at things through a consequentialist framework. So generally my question is going to be what will produce the most amount of good for society at the end of the day, rather than acts themselves, I guess, being good or bad, because the utilitarian thing was brought up. But yeah.
So how do you do that in sort of a balancing rights of individuals against individuals, or I guess in the state versus the individual?
Well, I mean, like, so from a very, very broad point of view, what I would say is I want individual rights to be protected as much as possible, until they begin to cause problems for other people, and then at that point, you would have to take a step back and see what is going to produce your greatest consequences. I guess in relation to some value that you have to choose. So this is kind of out there. Let's with specific examples, right? We look at something like firearm ownership. I'm currently in favor of firearm ownership in the United States, mainly because I like guns and because they're fun. However, if you could demonstrate that certain policies could be enacted that would significantly curb the amount of firearm violence in the United States, I think that the amount of people killed by firearms and the amount of terror caused by that, I think that would be an okay trade-off to curb that freedom if we could stop that amount of violence. I would be okay with that trade-off. So that would be like I guess a real, or something like healthcare. Healthcare is actually a lot less messy, right? I'm very much in favor of free markets and in people being able to make the choices that they want to make about where their money goes. But socialized healthcare seems to be the absolute best way to go in terms of designing a healthcare system that effectively cares for its citizens. And I don't see a free market ever being able to compete with a socialized single payer option. It doesn't seem to be the way that is. So even though generally I'd be in favor of open markets and people making their own decisions for healthcare, that doesn't seem like the best way to construct a society.
Similar to roads or other utilities.
Sure, yeah.
Well, on the point of your support of free markets, that's a good question from some random geek. Hello, SRG, by the way, regular viewer and admin. How would the market capitalism deal with the inevitable future of a jobless society where every job is automated? How will people be able to live if capitalism is still around?
It's hard to say if we'll ever reach that spot, but I mean, it could happen. If that did happen, then I say it's hard to say that because like we've continued to become more and more and more efficient, but it seems like we always find more jobs for people to have somehow. But if we ever got to that point, then yeah, you're talking about massive redistributive policies that would have to come into effect. Things like universal basic income or something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, fair enough.
I have one from Adam. I'd like to ask Destiny why he thinks that the most popular YouTubers in the skeptic community are predominantly right-wing. It seemed like in the early 2010s, it was much more liberal community, but now most of these commentators default to right-wing positions like pro-Trump, Brexit, free markets, and anti-immigration. Yeah, so that's it.
Man, I don't know. There's so many reasons why this could be the case. I think that the left gave up on a lot of types of discourse that they shouldn't have given up on. And I think that the left-leaning people assume that being morally, quote unquote, correct or having the moral high ground is somehow going to like save them from all other types of criticism. So like for instance, like how many, man, there's so many, this can branch off into so many different ways. So like here's something I'm irritated about left-leaning people, right? For some reason, right-leaning people for a long time got away with the facts versus feelings narrative, where they would say like, oh, well, my facts don't care about your feelings. And left-leaning people seemed to say, well, the moral arguments are on our side, so I don't give a fuck about any fact-based argument. But the reality is that conservatives very rarely, if ever, have fact-based arguments on their side. So I feel like giving up that ground was a bad idea. And you kind of see that like the new age conservative always seems to be the one that's, you know, hyper rational and super cool and conservative. And it's like, well, actually, you know, this is the case and this is actually what's factually true, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, well, no, none of this is actually true at all. Like, how the fuck did this happen? So I feel like the way that the right presents itself is a lot more sexy, a lot more attractive than kind of the left that just seem to harp on, you know, good moral values or something like that, or being progressive for society and then abdicating like a more fact-based platform. I mean, that's like one of like 50 different potential things that could impact why right-leaning people became more popular than left-leaning people on the internet. The fact that right-leaning people tended to be more edgy or have more, I guess, humor associated with their stuff than left-leaning people could also be a big thing that plays into it as well. Like,
but I think we have started to see something of a pushback on that, in the sense that you've got more people like ContraPoints and H-Bomber Guy and those sorts that are starting to gain a foothold, and I think gaining some semblance of traction. And I think actually talking to people on the right, however distasteful they are, is something certainly that I've tried to do and that Kristi's done from time to time. And I think that's an important part of it as well, if for no other reason than just to humanize us in the eyes of people who want to see us as, you know, SJW NPCs rather than as actual human beings.
I also think there's probably been a change in what a liberal position has been in the last, we're talking about the early 2010s, right? And my impression of the liberals in the skeptic community meant that you were in favor of marriage equality before it was legalized and legalizing pot. I don't really know that it went deeper than that. And so when the more reactionary elements of their ideas and their views started to come out, it was really just because those issues, they weren't talking about them yet because they were too busy bashing Christians, and when they were looking for their next group, they looked to the left. So
yeah, but even that surface level liberalism has been given up now because they've thrown their weight behind Christian reactionary scum like Peterson and, well, I mean, Shapiro's Jewish rather than Christian, but those sorts of people who are anti-gay, who are anti-trans, who, don't necessarily support drug liberalisation or anything like that. So even that veneer of liberalism has been cast aside.
is Sargon pro-Peterson? I'm just trying to think of who is.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. He said before that he was a profound thinker.
I bet he has the lobsters come out.
Well, not even the lobster thing. The man that said that he drank one glass of apple cider and it kept him awake for 25 days straight. Yeah, a profound thinker, by which I presumably meant total bullshitter.
Yeah.
The guy that's doing the all meat diet thing now, right? That's Jordan Peterson's thing because of his daughter selling her bullshit or whatever.
How does he shit? If you eat nothing but meat, how do you pass any solids? That's ridiculous. It must be like bricks. Fucking hell. Sorry, I've had that. I've been rather ill this week, so these bodily functions have been on my mind.
The first thing was frame it in terms of your own suffering recently, and then turning it on its head.
Do you begrudge a dying man his final fucking thoughts, Kristi? Really?
Yeah. Well, on the Peterson thing, it just seems like another money chaser. Again, how left or liberal were some people in their views, and then when Obama went away and Trump came up, and they had an opportunity to choose, they chose their where their audience is or where their own ideology is. So I don't know. Do you have another? I do have a question here from the Facebook group that reads, "Why is Kevin Logan so awesome?" And that was submitted by Kevin Logan. So
it was.
Thanks for that one, Kevin.
You weren't really supposed to ask Destiny. That was just a joke for the group. But okay.
Well, now it's a joke for everybody.
But please, Destiny, a person who clearly doesn't know me from fucking Adam, please tell me why I'm so awesome, if you want to.
Because you seem like a really British guy. That's all I got for now.
Fair enough. Well, I will put on my red coat and be over in a second then, I suppose.
Oh, there you go. Second British invasion.
Yeah. Well, it would be more than the second, surely. The War of 1812 counts as an invasion, surely.
So are we up for any Trump talk in Michael Cohen's plea bargain? I don't know if you guys have been keeping up on that. I don't know if you can avoid it in the States, in the media.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff going around right now. Very, very interesting stuff. Things that are being lied about that really make you wonder why people would lie about them. Yeah.
Is it possibly making you think about not voting for Trump in 2020?
I mean, I didn't vote for him at all. Don't pin that evil on me. Just because some people might think that I did at one point. But yeah, I don't actually know if any of the investigation stuff will ever make people not like him until actual charges are filed. I mean, look at what happened with Kavanaugh, where I'm pretty sure Republicans were emboldened because they see it as unfair treatment. I'm sure there's still a lot of Republicans that see the Russian investigation as unfair treatment against Trump. So,
well, I don't think you'll ever get him to 0% approval, because even when Nixon resigned, he was at 36% or something.
Oh yeah, not 0%.
Well, he's already set up the narrative, this idea of them being angry Democrats, even though Mueller's a Republican and most of his team are Republicans.
Yeah, people did the same with Comey as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely fucking ridiculous. Yeah, without Comey, he wouldn't be president, because without that fucking leak of stuff at the end there, they'd still been talking about pussy grabbing until election day, and he would have lost. Mm-hmm. Simple.
He basically was running for president to get his brand name out there and be known for it. But the fact is that when he won, and the way that he won, might now mean that even when he leaves office, if he stays and loses the next election and doesn't get impeached, the investigations will continue after that. And it's not just him, it's Ivanka and it's Jared. And, they've already got so many guilty pleas. It might destroy the whole family.
Kristi, I have to say, and I mean, you're not the worst of it at all, but there's a lot of people in America on the left or liberal side of things who I think are frankly a little deluded. I don't see that I mean, people say he's going to end up in jail. I don't think he is. No, nobody who gets that powerful ever really does. And it's done for an understandable reason, in the sense, like we talked about Nixon. He didn't go to jail for what he did, even though he committed crimes. And we know he did. Because people know it's going to be divisive. And so to keep the country at least on a vaguely level playing field, and to not have thousands of fucking, frankly, rednecks, let's be honest, with their fucking MAGA hats going crazy and shooting people up, they're not going to put him in jail. They're not going to, I think they're just going to allow it to run out.
I don't know.
Regardless of what gets found out.
I think the difference in
okay,
what's
well,
going on here,
yeah, maybe I'm wrong, but that's just the way I look from the outside. America doesn't tend to actually go after its powerful in the same way that other countries do.
In general, that's true, but there are things that can cause that to happen. And everything. I mean, like Manafort what is Manafort worth? I'm curious. Let me check.
60-some million, was it?
Oh, okay. In the tens of millions, I guess. So not like ultra super wealthy, but I mean, like Manafort was a fairly wealthy guy, and that dude is probably going to spend the rest of his life in jail now.
Well, he also did try to play a double agent, which was the dumbest move ever.
Yeah. This well.
Oh, by the way, we've got a super chat, Krista.
Oh, thank you, super chat. Sorry, we don't normally get those. Continue.
No, we don't.
Destiny, you were saying.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. I think that this investigation is like so public that I don't think Trump is going to escape. I mean, depending on what Mueller finds, if Mueller finds like indictable stuff, I don't think Trump is going to escape those charges. Now, I don't know if he's going to be in jail forever, but like a formal impeachment is going to be a massive deal in the United States if it comes to that. And even if it doesn't, Jesus Christ, like so much has already been uncovered investigatively that looks so fucking bad. We're already at like historic levels of unprecedented amounts of very strange and shady dealings with other countries related to like the president's cabinet party and everything.
Possibly, but maybe I'm just a little bit jaded because we've had 2 years now of people saying any minute now he's gonna release a report and it's gonna be the end of it, and it just carries on.
Well, I mean they take a long time, and also, I mean, it's only been going on for like 18 months or something. Watergate lasted for 5 years. Not Watergate, sorry, Whitewater. All of these gates, and it starts with W. But anyway, and also kind of to what you were saying, Destiny, about the scope of it. There are investigations, there are criminal proceedings already going up in New York by the state attorneys into Trump Foundation and its charity and how it moved money around. And so there's a lot of things that Mueller has farmed off to other jurisdictions because they don't really fall within his remit, but he's uncovered evidence of criminality. And that's going to have a long reach because we're talking about financial documents, and if you've got receipts, you can chase money. So
Yep, definitely. I mean, again, even if this investigation ended right now, this has already been so insanely fruitful. It's unbelievable. What is this, like over 20 indictments so far? Was it 4 or 8 guilty pleas? Like there's been so
30s now. I can check, but how many?
I do. If nothing else happens, I hope Roger Stone goes down because he's a fucking turd.
Yeah.
That would be good to say.
Oh yeah, $60 million in assets seized. So technically, it's already the investigation's even paid for itself. Like, yeah, there's
thank you, Paul.
Keep going.
Yeah, there's just so much.
Great little income stream for the American exchequer there.
Yeah, it's very ironic because Republicans always claim that this is just witch hunting and fake investigations and whatnot, but nothing ever came of all the Benghazi hearings. Nothing ever came of all the Hillary email shit. These things were literal. Were literal, shows for the public that ended up in nothing happening. So,
well, they interviewed her for 12 hours in front of the Senate committee, and she didn't plead the fifth once.
Yeah, over multiple.
Nothing came of it.
Nothing. Yep.
And the other thing too is that Michael Cohen has just pled guilty basically to lying to Congress in his testimony, and other people gave the same testimony he did. So if he's lying and they're lining up with him,
also, can someone once ask Trump? sorry, when Donald Trump says some dumb shit, like he called him a weak, pathetic man or whatever, Cohen, someone say, "Well, why the fuck did you hire him as your lawyer for years then, you
Nah, they don't
incompetent
catch
piece of
it.
shit?"
The wind changes and they will say something completely different. It was Giuliani, I think, on record for totally 180ing how he felt about, oh God, who was it? Within
Michael
like a
Cohen.
week. Was it? It might have even
Yeah.
been Cohen. It might have been within a week. He was saying like he's one of the most competent, well-meaning lawyers, blah 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 blah. And then the next week it's like, oh, that guy, like he's just not a great human. Or I wish I could remember the exact quotes, but like yeah,
I think he said I didn't know he was recording people when I said that.
maybe yeah, I don't know, like just crazy 180s on these opinions.
Oh God, well, America. If Trump has taught the world anything, is that America really needs to sort its shit out. There's something deeply fucking rotten going on there.
Well, the bit I'm waiting for when the Mueller investigation is turned into a Netflix series is to learn whether or not Bob Mueller knew that Paul Manafort was playing a double agent the whole time, or whether he was surprised by that. So that's also, what I want to know.
Also, I just want to, Kristi, what's your casting plan?
Oh yeah, Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks is Robert Mueller, definitely.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah. Although is
apparently
Hanks
people are saying, or go ahead.
No, go on.
Well, I was back to that. If Mueller knew, I mean, like a lot of people have theorized that Mueller is very, very savvy when it comes to all of this stuff. That the release on a lot of this news is not accidental. That the fact that it was revealed that Manafort lied after, or that Cohen and Manafort had both lied, like after Trump had already submitted his written testimony and whatnot. That a lot of this is done in intentional time frames. So.
Yeah, he really looks like he's playing 4D chess with Donald Trump. Who's confused by the checkers board. He's looking at one move ahead, and Mueller is 6 months ahead. Yeah.
Well, I hope you're both correct, but I fear not.
Well, and the Democrats are going to request his taxes now, so we're going to be able to see the Russian money coming in.
I definitely hope that happens, and of course, it will expose the hypocrisy of the thought audit cockheads as well, who supposedly want tax justice but won't want Trump's taxes released. I'm sure.
Destiny, you have a take on that? The thought audit?
I mean, it's just a bunch of people that fucking hate women that are trying to stick it to them. I mean, there's not much else to say. Yeah.
And some people are assholes.
Yeah.
And I especially love the libertarians believe that tax is theft. Want to literally snitch on people they consider thieves.
Yep.
Okay, that's an interesting approach to morality, you pieces of shit. Anyway, I'm glad that joke bombed. Sorry, it wasn't a joke really, but anyway. Yeah, you didn't quite have you didn't have to tumbleweed me there.
Sorry, Kevin.
You didn't have to. Anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, these are all the same people that didn't care about Trump's taxes or don't care about blah, blah, blah. That huge tax fraud story got published in the New York Times and literally nobody gives a fuck about it. But man, if some woman is making a couple $1,000s off of Snapchat, people are real fucking mad about that.
Yeah. And as I pointed out in the thing, I did a video yesterday. These are people who don't have like the usual protections of like holiday pay, sick pay, healthcare insurance. So they're not exactly like phenomenally rich, most of these people.
Yeah.
So you're just shitting on poor people.
You might be a little bit biased because you live in a country that has these things. In the U.S., a lot of us don't have any of that shit at all of sick pay yeah.
Oh, well, okay, fair enough. But I mean, there are certainly many people who do have those things or have some of those things, and these people don't have any of it.
Yeah, maybe.
So you're literally say exclusively a series of poor, not very well protected people, and you're shitting on them. Like it's just immorality upon immorality.
I think that the notion of citizenship in America has a lot to do with the country and not to do with the people. Does that make sense?
I mean, it depends on what time period you're.
Well, I guess I'm thinking about the sort of patriotism now where it's about the flag and the military and the service, but it's not really about community or, like the ethic that underlies the NHS about providing healthcare for everybody in the country. It's just like a lot of people were committed to that, and some people have been trying to undermine it ever since.
I mean, like, it's so complicated. All these topics, you have to talk about like 50 different things that intersect. I do think that there are, this really hurts to say, I do think that there are a lot of conservatives that genuinely want healthcare for most people and genuinely believe that the best way to do that is with the free market, as unbelievable as that is, because I think there are certain people at the top that kind of mislead them into believing that. I feel like when it comes to, this is actually, I believe the same about political discourse online too, and a lot of people disagree with me on this, but when I look at people like Sargon of Akkad, and there are other, basically anybody that calls himself like a centrist or a skeptic or whatever. A lot of these people are well intentioned, but they just end up being incredibly stupid, and then they end up being useful idiots. And that's kind of what ends up happening with a lot of these people. That they don't start out wanting to like legitimately hate or demonize certain groups of people. They just wind up there because they're too stupid to keep themselves from winding up there.
Just to bring it back to healthcare, I'm in Germany, and I've now experienced the American private system, the NHS, and the German system, which is a mixed model, where doctors and the government and insurance companies come together and they cost out procedures and they make forecasts and they make sure money gets spread around. But there are also caps on like prescriptions that doctors can write per year and other things like that to do cost controls. And there's actually, I prefer it to both of the other two, because what it allows is it allows capitalism in to do what it does best, which is find efficiencies in the bureaucratic part of it, in the insurance part of it. And then that frees up doctors and nurses and healthcare professionals to not do paperwork or worry about that kind of stuff or budgets, and just focus on their jobs. And the government has the benefit of, not having skyrocketing health costs and people not being able to access it. So I think that there are roles, I'm not anti-capitalist, but I think it has to be really, really well regulated and redistributive and things like that, and progressive in its taxation. But I do think that there's a case to be made for putting the bureaucracy in with the healthcare, and taking it out might be more efficient. So I did want to ask you a question because I saw your video with the Peterson fan. And your frustrations, your mode of conversation is much more relaxed with us than you're not quite screaming. But you summarized Peterson's worldview in a way that I think it's the best summary I ever I've had. And I guess people have heard. People should go maybe watch the video, but it's pretty deep in. And I just it must be something you have, ability to re-articulate. So I don't know if you want knowing exactly what I'm talking about, but Peterson's sort of take on relations in the world and his sort of Freudian aspects and how that informs it.
I'm sorry. Oh, could you repeat that last thing again? I just had an audio thing going.
Yeah, I just heard something about prostitutes.
Yeah, sorry.
It had to do with your take on Peterson's worldview, how you understand his worldview.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I got it. So I mean, like the way that I typically describe that is you have it seems like what Peterson does is he kind of like leads you to the water and then lets you drink it, I guess, but doesn't ever actually encourage you to do so. So the way that I break this up is there are two different kinds of claims, right? You've got descriptive claims, you've got normative claims. And descriptive claims, you talk about like things as they are, and then in normative claims, you talk about what you ought to do. And kind of what Peterson's shtick is he will make a boatload of descriptive claims, but he will never make a normative claim. So you can never actually accuse him of doing anything bad. So for an example of this, Peterson might say like, women cause disruption in the workplace. Men and women don't get along in the workplace. We are reaching record levels of accusers of like sexual harassment in the workplace. And then he'll stop. And any normal human being, would look at all this and like, oh, wow. So Jordan Peterson doesn't think that women should work in the workplace. And then Peterson will always come out swinging. And then his fans will always come out swinging like, whoa. I never actually said that, which is true. He didn't actually say that because he ends up never making any sort of like prescriptive claims ever. He never tells people what we should do. Or it seems like, or very rarely, it's very fucking hard for me to find videos of Peterson ever saying what we should do. Instead, what he normally does, he just tosses out like a bunch of data or a bunch of claims, most of which are generally true when it's related to psychology. These are generally true claims, but then he never ever gives like any type of prescriptive action, like what people should do in any given case. So that then he's able to amass like a fan base of people that are usually very hateful, that all generally hate women, that are like very, very anti-progressive or whatever. Yeah.
Have you seen the meme of the Ben and Jerry's flavor with Jordan Peterson on the front? And it's that's called "That's Not What I Meant."
I haven't seen that. That's funny, but that sounds like Jordan Peterson in a nutshell, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Kevin, did you want to read out the super chat?
Yeah, someone asked me, and thank you to the person for the super chat. Kevin, why are British people taught little about the impact of the British Empire on other countries, the bad stuff specifically? Now, if you take the second half of that sentence, you've got the answer to the first half, basically, because no country ever wants to admit that, do they? In the same way that America doesn't teach its people about the coups it takes part in South America, and Australia doesn't teach its people about the slaughter of its indigenous and all of that sort of thing. It's essentially national psychological control thing, you know.
The Germans make a good effort, though.
True, that is true. They are, yeah, they are a lot better than most. Although to be fair, that
they were kind of forced on it by the rest of the world.
a little bit, yeah. Understandably, but yes,
yeah.
But yeah, so most empires, most nations don't teach its people that way. Actually, interestingly, do you know the Japanese after the war? You know the Nuremberg trials. Essentially the Japanese version of that. There was an Indian high court judge who was presided over that and released them all on technicality grounds, and he's still celebrated on his birthday in Japan every year. As a bizarre thing. So Japan has taken it to the even further extent of essentially celebrating their evilness during the Second World War, which is a bit weird. But there we go.
Well, on the point
so
of
we're not the worst.
Celebrated Thanksgiving for a long time.
Yeah, that's
yeah. On the issue of colonialism, you know, they don't teach it in schools. What they do is they steal the artifacts and then they make documentaries about them, and you know, for BBC.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and no one can accuse me of supporting that because I put my neck out on the line and said we should return the property of Greece to Greece, the Elgin marbles.
The French recently returned something, didn't they?
Did they? I don't know. What are you talking about?
Sorry, I thought I remember seeing that France returned a piece of artwork to a country that they had taken it from.
Have Germany ever given France its bollocks back?
Sorry, I muted myself because I was going to actually look this up on Google, and then you threw me a joke, and I started laughing off air, and nobody could hear me. I was laughing by myself.
For a brief second there, I thought you were literally saying I was going to look up whether France had been given it back.
That would have been so much better. Damn, I wish I were wittier.
I want to see the Google results for that question. That would be amazing. I don't know what the fuck it would be. A lot of porn, I imagine. But there we go. Anyway, so Kristi, are we basically done?
I think so. Although now I'm intrigued.
Well, basically, we've. Oh, go on.
Now I'm intrigued to know. I don't want to leave the audience. Yes, here it is. France returns 26 artworks to Benin as report urges restitution. This is from Reuters, and it says they'll return 26 works of art after a report recommending the widespread return of cultural artifacts removed from Africa during the colonial era. So yeah, France is leading the way and putting their money where their mouth is.
Well, that's good. But I mean, the British government have empowered me to speak on their behalf in telling the world to go fuck themselves. You're not getting a thing back. It's horrible, but that's basically the opinion of the British state. It's ours now. Go fuck yourselves.
And on that colonial, stereotype.
It's not even a stereotype, it's just a truth.
Yeah,
it's just an unfortunate, shitty truth about my unfortunate, shitty country. So
I think a lot of colonial countries, but yeah. Well, Destiny, I again apologize for the time mix-up. Again, it's 3 time zones, and I'm normally really good, but I messed up today, so I apologize for that and for rushing you around.
It's fine.
Okay, I've been sitting here feeling like shit. If it makes any difference.
You're fine. Don't worry about it.
All right. So no more questions for Destiny from the chat?
I don't think so. Plus, who cares? It's the chat.
Yes. We pretty much ignore them. So this was special treatment. They got extra special.
Do you have here's a question. I have a debate later that kind of came out of nowhere with Ian Chung. Do you know this guy?
Oh, he blocked me. Yeah.
Ant-Man.
Yes.
On the right to offend.
Oh, wait. So shout that out. What time is that going to happen? Where can people see it?
Shoot, I don't even remember. Hold on.
It's a really important event in his life. It's, I don't know, sometime today.
Sometime after 7, or it's after 5 CST tonight sometime. I don't know exactly when, though. Hold on. Well, I don't know if you guys had any tips or anything.
For Chong, yeah. Look into his Twitter past because he says the dumbest thing. He is literally the wrongest man on the internet about everything. He's a fucking idiot.
Is that really true? Isn't he usually correcting himself in the past a lot, though? So can he truly be the wrongest man?
If you're always apologizing for it.
if you're wrong, but you've also said contradictory stuff in the past, it seems like you've been on the right side of a lot of things, at least at one point in your life. I don't know.
Well,
So,
maybe.
What is it again? The topic: the right to offend.
The right to offend.
All right.
Okay. Well, I'll look out for that at some point after 5 CST tonight.
I guess if you really, if I wanted to kind of mess with somebody on that, I would ask whether or not the idea of a right to offend implies an obligation on the part of people to expose themselves to your stuff to be offended. And yeah, so I mean, it's always the right of the person speaking, but what about the impact that that offense has? Now, sometimes it's social offense, but if you're actually, starting to make people uncomfortable or drive, at what point does it stop being about commentary and it start being personal?
Sure, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Also, ask him about his doxing as well, because he's once or twice he's been engaged in doxing.
Really?
So you could ask him about that if you wanted to as well. Yeah.
Wait, do you have any information about that?
Yes, I can look that up, and I will. Actually, well, I can't even contact you on Twitter, can I? But yeah, he certainly outed one of his journalistic sources live on air once because he's a fucking idiot and doesn't understand how journalism actually works. But I'll try and look that up if I can.
I think I have both of your email addresses.
Okay, well, I'll pass it to Kristi and she can pass it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be interesting, sure.
On the idea of the right to offend, all right, can I just bring this up and be really geeky? If we're going to be wrapping things up, I watched Bodied, which is the YouTube-produced movie. It was actually, YouTube helped kind of distribute it, but it was produced by, among other people, Eminem, and it's about rap battling, but it's not, okay, it is about rap battling. However, it's told through the perspective of a white progressive dude who's in Berkeley, and he is intellectually really drawn to the lyricism of rap and rap culture and the sort of sparring culture that happens there. But then he's got a very progressive group of friends who are, I guess the phrase would be PC and very woke and calling each other out on their privilege. So it deals with the stereotype of that too. But at the core of it is his dilemma is that rap battles often bring up racial issues. They're very sexist, misogynistic, but he also really enjoys the genre. And part of the movie, the first half of it is sort of like looking at his conflicts because he's sort of a fish out of water by trying to swim in two pools. I don't know if that's mixing a metaphor, but on that right to offend, I thought that was actually an interesting and more thoughtful way of thinking about offense and how we deal with it and and how it can hurt people and in ways that it can be used safely, as it were, maybe, and where the lines are. Not that they draw lines, but they ask questions about where those lines can be drawn and what is too far in a rap battle. Is anything too far in a rap battle? So sure. I would really recommend if you have YouTube Premium to check it out because I really enjoyed it, but I'm also kind of a nerd. So
okay, yeah,
you're not Kristi. You're not a nerd, are you? When did that happen? I hadn't seen this side of you at all.
Yeah, I'm actually working on a video about a current rap battle happening with YouTube rappers. So that's that'll be fun. That'll be different for my audience, other than political science and Trump.
All right, well, cool. Hey, listen, I really appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. So go. Oh yes, I put a link to your YouTube channel, Destiny, in the link below. So obviously, if you probably already subscribed. If you're not, please go and do. And thank you for coming on. And we appreciate having you guys on. Thank you to those of you in the chat. Thank you to my guests. And thank you to those of you who are watching in the future. Goodbye from me and goodbye from Destiny and Kevin. Say goodbye, everybody else, or say goodbye.
Bye. See you guys later.
Okay, bye.
Goodbye, everybody else.
Yeah, Kevin did the bid. Thanks. All right, bye.